This is a 2018 Honda CRF250L Rally. The first part of this video, I'm going to kind of give you my impressions of it. Mixed in with that is some of the things that I think need to be done to make this a bike that I would want. The idea is a lightweight adventure bike, right? Well, this, a 250L Rally, are marketed and sold and built as a trail bike. Relatively lightweight for a trail bike, heavyweight for a dirt bike, but they're street legal and a little bit easier to approach. And then the cost is a lot lower. A dirt bike these days, bikes $10,000, $11,000, and these are about $6,000. And then what are you getting from the 250L to the 250L Rally? One of them is the fairings, very obvious. Number two, a larger fuel tank. Not hugely large, but it's a little bit larger. Number three, long travel suspension in the front and in the back. It's a bit taller of a motorcycle as well. What else do you get? And I'm going to go over the suspension later. You also get this fairing. That's going to help for wind protection if you're driving down the highway, just to keep some of that wind off you. What is this bike good for? Well, both this and the 250L are great trail bikes. And then in the city and on back roads, it's super plush. I would say this bike is set up for about a 150-pound rider. So probably up to 175 and down to say 100 pounds. This bike's set up perfect. Beyond that, it gets a little soft, but it's still fine if you're sort of doing that passive trail riding or riding around town. It's totally fine. And one thing about having that soft suspension, since this is a taller bike, when it's so soft, and it's hard to show this, but you can see how much that suspension just gives. And so when you sit on it, even a smaller rider, well, not small, but with say a 32-inch inseam, you're easily flat-footed. Kind of bombing along. I was doing about 45 miles an hour. We're going to bring it up a little bit. It's about 50. Speed limit's about 45, 50 miles an hour around here, and just kind of cruising along. And this bike's really nice, and the ultra soft suspension just makes it a pleasure to ride. Wind protection is just about right. I like it. I like a little bit of extra wind because I ride on hot days a lot of times. So this gives you enough protection. It keeps the wind just up to the top of your visor or top of your helmet, and it brings that wind up there so it's out of your face. It still hits you in the shoulders a little bit, so it kind of keeps you balanced on the bike, and that's kind of what I like. I don't want to be in a complete bubble. So everything's really nice and smooth, and the handling's great. It's when you want to start getting into corners a little bit faster and start taking and changing direction quite a bit, off-road and then on-road on the really windy stuff, that you'll find that the suspension ends up being too soft and the bike feels like it's wallowing. So there, once you start feeling that, then it's time to maybe change out some things in the suspension a little bit. Go into detail about both the front forks as we make our modifications to these front forks. So it's some upgrades to these forks, and I'm actually going to replace the rear shock. I'm excited to get this thing started. I need to get back before it's raining, and that rain is like right at that hill right there. And so we're going to start heading back, get to where it's a little bit sunny before the rest of the rain hits, because this rain is coming. This was my one opportunity to get out here before that hit. All right, while we're headed down the hill here, let's talk about some of those upgrades we're going to do. First of all, if we started from number one, there's a little band that goes over the seat. I've already taken that off, and you see it's missing, so there's it's like a little band that goes across the seat. That's the first thing to take off. Just remove that. Great modification. All right, second thing is I like different bend bars. I'm really used to the KTM bend bar, so I'm going to buy some thick or fat bars, and then I'm going to get some Pro Taper mounting brackets that you can mount that to. So it's an adapter, so it's a smaller, like 1/8 or whatever it is, to 1 1/8 bar, and so those adapters will bring it up 1 inch. I want to put heated grips on there because when it gets cold like this, your hands get cold. So I'm going to get some heated grips. I want to put the hand guards on the bike so that it has, you can see those little hand guards on there right now. They're little wind protectors, but not real hand guards. We'll put on some hand guards that are good in case of a crash. I'm going to replace the shock. That's expensive. And then I'm going to upgrade the forks so that it puts another spring in. Show you as I get done with all of these things how it's working out. but it's a big upgrade, real expensive. That rear shock's about $1,000. The front fork upgrade is a few hundred, so real expensive thing, but we're going to do it. I need to put a skid plate on there because I'm going to take this thing off-road. It's got a plastic skid plate on it now. We'll put on a proper skid plate. I was thinking of putting that IMS tank on it. It only gives you an extra half a gallon. Ordered the tank, got it here, and realized they actually, I don't know, when I called them, they said, oh yeah, we really never finished designing that tank, so it's got a couple of things in it that don't look well. Anyways, it only gave me a half a gallon extra, so I said forget it. I'm just gonna put a Rotopacks on the back. So I returned that. So no tank. I'm gonna replace the chain, both sprockets. Right now it's got a 13 tooth in the front. I want to put the 14 tooth back on it. Big upgrade, and we're going to get to right now is the clutch. I'm going to replace the clutch. Let's get to that right now. We are going to do some upgrades and all sorts of things. So we're going to start out first with a clutch upgrade. The clutch upgrade will give you a lot more immediate response. Clutch pack that does not have the judder spring in it. The judder spring allows you to have a slower initial bite to the clutch so that you don't stall the motorcycle. It's great for beginners. So you let the clutch out accidentally a little bit too quick, it kind of slowly interacts that clutch. It doesn't come in super strong. So using a clutch pack without a judder spring will help that just act like a normal clutch pack where it engages a lot quicker. If you're looking to do wheelies, replace the clutch pack. You don't need to reduce the gearing on the motorcycle. The gearing on the motorcycle is what everybody goes and they do. They put a 13 tooth front sprocket on it. They'll put a 42 tooth rear sprocket on it, which reduces the gearing, but you still have a very slow initial grab to that clutch. So if you're doing wheelies, okay, great. Well, do the clutch. Really, it helps you on the trail, and it makes the bike feel a lot more responsive. So it's just a really nice upgrade. Along with the clutch pack, we'll put a little bit heavier duty springs in there, about 15% stronger than an original. So it's a little bit better. It helps that new clutch pack grab just a little bit faster, a little bit stronger initial grab to the clutch. Nothing wrong with the clutch itself. The next thing you want to get when you're doing a clutch pack is a new gasket. So we're going to get started. I'll show you what I need to do to get that going, and we'll go from there. Okay guys, here is the bike. I do need to take the side panels off, so we're going to take this side panel off, this side panel off. Well, here's an important note. Since we're doing the clutch, you want to take the clutch pack out of here, out of the box, which is all the clutch discs are dry. They can't be dry when you put them in the bike, so they need to be soaked in the oil you're using in the bike. I'm using Mobil 1 Racing 4T. It's a fully synthetic. It's a 1040. That's what I'm using in the bike, and therefore I use the same bag that they gave me. I filled it up with the oil and then separated all the discs to make sure that they all had oil in them, and I'm going to leave them soaking while I'm working on the bike. That's massively important. If you do put them in dry, it's going to burn the clutch up really quick. You have taken the fairings off. All right guys, tech tip 1, here we go. This is going to be about keeping track of all these little bolts that you need to take out of here. You want them all to go back in the same place. Some are a little bit longer, some are a little bit shorter. So use your artistic ability and draw yourself a picture, and you'll have a circle for each spot, and you're going to stick the screw in each one of those holes, and you know right where it goes. It'll make sense to you, maybe nobody else, but it'll make sense to you. Second thing I just wanted to show you really quick. So I drained, so this bolt right here is for the drain. It's not going to drain until you start pulling this hose off. So take this bolt out and then start loosen this hose, and as you start pulling it off, it's going to drain out. You can lean the bike over so it comes out. It's going to come out the skid plate there, but it drains pretty quickly and you're ready to go. So next step is take all these bolts off here, and then I'm going to pull the side plate off. Okay, so we've got the side case off. Let's take a look at that really quick. So this is what it looks like. This is your clutch assembly here, and all your clutch discs are in here. We're going to pull this off. I'll show you more about that in a second. And this is the case. So you see I have my little diagram over there with all my screws in it. You have to clean up the gasket. All this around here all needs to be cleaned up so the new gasket will seal. And that's what I'm going to work on next. All right, so we've got both the judder springs out, and we're going to leave those out, so those don't matter anymore. Going back together, we've taken this plate. Now this is the most inner pressure plate, so we're going to put it back together. We're just going to swap these discs out for the new ones, and we'll just go one by one as we go through. We're going to replace the springs as well. We'll put new springs in it and we'll be set. Okay, and this is what it looks like. So now we've got all of this back in there. All right guys, we got our new clutch back together. It's a little spring right here. You want to be careful about this spring, and what this spring is in the bottom of this, say your clutch pull handle here. If that comes up, if you pull it up while you're taking this apart, this spring is going to fall out. As you replace this spring back in here, you'll know the long side's going to be down. The longer, there's like a pull on one side, the wire sticks out, the wire sticks out the other side. The short side goes on the center on this side. And if you rotate this arm around, you're going to find a little hole back in here that arm goes into, and that keeps your spring tension. The next valid point to think about is if you see any O-rings sitting around in here, they don't go on this side, they go on the case side. So there is an O-ring right here. That one normally drops off into your case when you're pulling it apart, and this one right here, which sometimes drops off into your case. You want to make sure both those O-rings are in good shape. Then down on the bottom here, you can see another O-ring down here. That one could stick to the outside case as well. And we just want to make sure all those are in place before you put it back together. Make sure they're cleaned up too, so if they get damaged, you're going to need to replace those. But not a big chance of them getting damaged. The biggest chance is them falling inside here and you're not noticing it, or falling in here and not noticing it, and then everything is going to leak, and that's going to be no good. No bueno. All right, we've got it back together. A couple things to note. You may have noticed I didn't take this pedal out. What I found I could do is release the brake reservoir, and then this would move far enough out of the way that I could pull that out. Okay, so we have reassembled the entire bike. Well, not the entire bike, the entire engine. We've put new oil in it and new coolant in it, topped up the coolant, and I've run the bike for a few minutes just to run it up to temperature, and everything is perfect, no leaks, ready to go. And that is clutch job done.
Alright guys, so we have the new clutch installed. I made a initial adjustment on it to make sure I had the clutch kind of in the position I want, hoping that would be okay. We have to be quick because the rain is a-coming. Anyways, the second gear starts again. See what that engagement's like. There's first gear, second gear. It's just so much more solid of a clutch feel. It's just amazing. Gives you that instantaneous power, which is just way more fun. God.
Alright guys, let's change out that sprocket. Talk about doing that. Here's a 14 tooth sprocket. On the bike is a 13. Let me just show you what we got here. So you have this cover. There's 2 bolts there to take off. And then on the sprocket itself, there's this little thing that goes on here and it twists into place. That keeps the sprocket on. And you take those 2 bolts out and take this little thing off, and then your sprocket is going to come right off here, and I got to do that with 2 hands. But we're going to pull the sprocket off. I've got the chain loosened up, so we should be able to get the sprocket out of there without taking the chain off, hopefully, and then we'll put the new sprocket on. All right, so that worked out pretty easily. You got the 13 off and the 14 on. A little trick to this, I loosened up the chain, of course, and then take the chain out of this chain guide, just lift it up out of there and pull it off to the side here, and then the sprocket will just slide out, no problems. Then putting the new one on, make sure that chain's out of that chain guide there, slide the new sprocket into the chain, and then pick up the chain and put it back into the chain guide and slide the sprocket on it. It goes on. It's a piece of cake, super easy. Anyways, now on those 2 screws, these 2 little tiny screws, we want to put a little tiny bit of Loctite, blue Loctite on those, and we'll put those back in and torque them down, and we'll be all set. Well, one thing to note, I'm only replacing the front sprocket right now. I'm going to ride this probably once just to test it out, because I need to find out what size rear sprocket and I'll put a new chain on it. So anytime you're changing a sprocket, you should actually change both sprockets in the chain if you have any type of miles on the bike. This has very little wear in these sprockets, very little miles on the bike, so I'm not super worried about it, but I'm still going to do it. I'm going to change that back sprocket and put a new chain on there just to make sure I don't get excessive wear on those on that new sprocket. All right, guys, today is going to be a big day. I'm going to replace the rear shock with the Öhlins rear shock. I'll show you a picture here. Oh my God, isn't that beautiful? Yeah, and this has no adjustments whatsoever. Can't adjust the shock at all. Like I said in a previous video, you can shorten this link here if you get an adjustable link, which should, instead of being a lowering link, you'd be raising it, but that stiffens up the shock a little bit. But we're going to go with the Öhlins. It's got a remote reservoir, all of that, and then the front forks we're going to use a Race Tech spring. Same valving in the shocks, but we are going to increase the oil viscosity to 15 weight instead of 5 weight, and that will in essence change the valving of the fork. So those two things today: forks hopefully, shock hopefully. I don't know how much we're gonna get through. Let's give it a shot. All the fairings are off. I'll also pull the tank off here in a second. Got the lithium ion battery there, so that's gonna be a little bit lighter. That saves 4 pounds, holy smokes. Exhaust saves, they say 12 or 14 pounds. I think it's more like 10, but there's 14 pounds between those two. Other items I'm taking off. Bars probably saved 1 pound, but I'll put bark busters on there. That's another almost 1 pound. So some of it I'm taking off stuff and adding stuff. So hopefully in the end it'll be just what it weighed when I got it. Maybe a little less. A little bit of an update on where we sit on the bike. So we left off, I think we were installing this rear shock, so the Öhlins rear shock, and the most difficult part of that is getting this body through this hole. And so I'd take chain guide off, the sprocket off, and bend this little bracket right in here just slightly, and then it would come through. I wrapped this in tape so that it wouldn't get scratched pulling it through. Most people have the most problem with the top and bottom bolts. Bottom one's pretty easy actually, not that big a deal. The top one, you can, this battery box is in the way, so you can take the battery box out. That's not that difficult. Basically, you've got all these side panels off anyway, so you have to move this out of the way. There's a bolt right back here, there's a bolt here, and there's one up behind here, and you can pull that battery box out of the way. Or this battery box is open on the top, and it has a cutout here for the battery cable, has another cutout here for this battery cable. If you just want to extend that cutout all the way back and around, then it's permanently ready so that bolt is accessible all the time. So that's what I did. I just notched out the rest of the battery box. So anytime that shock needs to be replaced, it is super easy. I just got to disconnect the ground cable there, and if you look back in there, you can see that bolt pretty easily. And that makes it a total piece of cake. All right, what else have we done? So then we moved on from there to the front forks. And the front forks, the Race Tech suspension upgrade for this is adding a spring to the left fork, and then I placed the oil, instead of with a 5 weight, I put a 15 weight oil in the shock. So that is double the spring rate because you got 2 springs, and then increasing this fork also has the valving in it, and so you can either replace the valving or increase the viscosity of the oil to make the valving in it work the same as what you would replace it with. So that's what I did, 15 weight oil, and we'll see how that goes. You can always pull it back out and go, 20 weight, or you can go 10. Most people recommend 10 weight because that keeps it pretty mild. I go 15. That's just been my preference. Anyways, so that is upgraded. What is the next thing to do? Well, there's some wiring I needed to put in. So I've got a Trail Tech, I think it's a Trail Tech Pro. This is my GPS unit. It also has tracking, so you can do buddy tracking if somebody else has one of these. I put in my GPS routes with this unit, and so this is mounted to the bars here. These are new bars, so I put on a large fatter bar, which like Pro Taper bars. These are the Tusk bars with a KTM bend, and then I put the Pro Taper mounts on, which are a mount adapter. If you look underneath here, you can see this is the regular one, so it's going to bring it up about an inch and straight up, not out. I was going to move them forward, but moving them forward makes the bars hit the windscreen, so, and the unit up here. So just straight up, that works out perfect. Then what is the next thing I did? I ran the buddy system. I'm not sure how well you can see this right here, but right inside here, that's the antenna for the buddy system on the Trailtech. And what that does is allows you to see where your friends are when you're riding, so you don't have to follow each other's dust. And on the map, you'll see a little blip for all the people that you were riding with. And my experience has been about 3 miles is the range of this thing. I think they say it's about a mile range, but we've always had it on all of our trips. It's always been about 3 miles. It makes it a lot easier to find your friends and see where they are. And you can also look on the trail and say, okay, they went right at that corner or left at that corner, you know, that kind of thing. All right, so we got to wire up the power for this unit, and then I'm putting on some heated grips, and I'm going to need to wire up the power for those. So I'm going to combine those power. Also put in a power adapter for in case I run a phone. All right, guys, it's been I don't know, 5 days or something like that of working on this bike, and I've got it done. I'm waiting for 2 parts to come in, a chain slider, I'll show you where that is, and then I'm waiting for a skid plate that's coming from another country. So if anybody out there knows B&B Engineering, that's the skid plate I want, but they stopped sending to the United States. I think they're in Australia. Oh, I'd like to get one of those skid plates again. Anyways, let's take a look at the bike, and I'll show you what stuff I've done here. Front forks, I've installed the Racetech spring in the left fork tube. I've also replaced that oil with 15 weight oil, and that will provide better damping for the fork. But we'll see how that goes. I added 2 of the preload shims. I replaced the rear shock with the Öhlins shock, and you can see that in here. As you can see, the new chain and sprocket. Let's go up top where we have the new handlebars. I've got the Pro Taper mounts. These are the to make so you put the big bars on it, and it raises it up about 1 inch. Kept the distance forward about the same. These are a KTM bend bar. Put the heated grips. These are the Oxford heated grips. They're awesome. Love these. Put those on. Also safety wired those on, and then we've got the mirrors. I forget what these are called. Tusk handguards. Love these handguards. And one of the reasons I love them, I mean, the finish is better than anything out there that I've seen. But also when you come into the inner part of the bar, all these mounting pieces are all rounded. And so you don't, if you hit anything on there, it doesn't cut you, which is actually important if you ever fall towards the front of your bike. But it has the side guards on it and the larger wind protectors for brush and stuff like that. It's the D-Flex Pro is what they're called. All right, so moving around, the next thing you already saw, but this is the Trailtech. We have the EJK controller, the airbox mod, the exhaust system. This is the Yoshimura full exhaust system. I forget what the name of this thing is. It says back in here, it's like got that duplex chamber thing, RS4 I think is what it is. And we also have on this bike, the battery has been replaced with a lithium ion battery. Well, the suspension had to be adjusted, so if you do get the Öhlins suspension, when they send it to you, even though they say they set it up for this bike, they don't. They just put a spring on it, and it's just torque, it's just tensioned on there. So when I put it on here, I sat on the bike, it basically the same as it was when it was stock, just super squishy. And so added the suspension. So front and rear, we've got a static sag is 10%, sitting on the bike is 30%, which is basically perfect. But we're going to do some adjustments with that. I still need to set up the damping. Damping in the back is the rebound's a little bit soft. Rebound compression seems pretty good, but we've got a lot of setup to do with that. Other than that, bike is basically done. We're going to get a skid plate. I was going to show you that here. There's a skid plate right here. The B&B makes a skid plate that basically matches this. It comes up a little higher right here, but it looks exactly like this does. That's what I was after. Couldn't get that, but I ordered another aluminum skid plate. Comes up a little higher, but it should fit back in here just the way this one does. So I'm waiting on that. And then when I was talking about the chain slider, this is the chain slider. It goes down here, this plastic piece that goes around the swing arm. And since the previous owner ran a 13-tooth sprocket, it actually causes a lot more friction on this chain slider, so it's really worn all the way through. So I have a new one of those coming, but it's not gonna be here for a couple days, and I wanted to ride, so there we go. We're gonna ride it. All right, we're up here in Livermore, California, up by Lake Del Val, just up to where the clouds are just coming in. We've had this atmospheric river coming in. Anyways, let's bring, we can't get a lot of riding with all the rain and storms, but hey, we finished the Honda CRF250L Rally, and it is remarkable, the changes in this bike.
I want to give you guys an idea of how this changed the bike. As far as handling in the corners, it feels a lot more confidence inspiring. It's smoother. So you can feel the bumps a little bit, as I was saying earlier, but it's so much smoother because the bike's not wallowing in corners. If you find yourself like to be a little bit more aggressive in riding, you'll really appreciate the suspension upgrade because of a couple of things. One, the spring rate is a little higher, but the damping for rebound and compression damping is raised up a lot more. And so instead of it being something that feels like a pogo stick going through corners and wallowing like this, it sits really planted. It feels super solid through corners. It just rails through corners now, which is just awesome. So that is a huge improvement on the road. Absolutely huge improvement on the road. All right, guys, I got to stop somewhere. Here's some photos just to check out the bike. Boy, there's so much more to cover on this motorcycle. Exactly how this has improved the rideability of the bike and how much more I enjoy it. And then what is it going to be like on a long road trip, and what's it going to be like off-road? How's it going to handle tougher terrain? So we're going to get into all that coming up. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. I will catch you on the flip side.